Hey everybody, welcome back to my shop. I apologize, it's been quite a while since I've posted a video, 9 months to be exact. I think the last one was the skylight replacement on our coach, and at that point I was trying to get our coach ready to go for the wife and I's travel season, which generally begins end of March, April-ish time frame, and we usually have about 7 trips planned throughout the year where we go exploring, meet up with some of our RVing and Jeeping friends and hit some gatherings and some explore some off-road, as well as just take in the sights. So the last video I was trying to get prepared for that by doing the skylight replacement, and unfortunately everything kind of went to shit right after that. So it's not that I haven't been busy to post videos. It's been quite the opposite, actually. I've been buried, and right shortly after that, about April time frame last year, I developed a bit of a health issue, and it knocked the shit right out of me. It literally put me right on my back in bed. Scared the hell out of me, scared the hell out of my wife, my son. It wasn't pleasant. It took me a little bit longer to bounce back. I'm not old by any means, but it convinced me that I'm not 10 foot tall and bulletproof any longer. So anyway, it messed me up pretty good for, well, that was towards the latter part of April, and it was mid-June before I got feeling well enough to where I could really even get out in the yard and do yard work, come out in the shop and do a few little odds and ends. My wife was fantastic, making sure I was okay. And to be honest with you, if I went outside or I did anything like that, she was on my case. My son was just as bad. My son was coming over, and I mean, he's got his own life, and I don't begrudge him of that. I don't want to interfere with that. He and his wife have got their own home, and they're looking at starting a family and everything, and I was fine, but he was trying to come over and make sure that I was okay, and trying to see, he knew I was, had things in the middle of in the shop when kind of things went south. So we were, between the two of us, we were able to kind of get caught up on those couple of little things. But I had a list of side jobs that I'd promised out, as well as a couple of personal projects that I wanted to get taken care of, and those were actually scheduled for late spring, early summer, but all that kind of got turned upside down. So about mid-June, I was able to kind of start getting back into things, although it wore on me throughout the day and really got the better of me. My son has a 2002. I'll just kind of go over a couple of the projects that we did throughout the summer. This all started kind of when my son decided to sell his Harley back in the spring. About the time that I had my little health issue, he was talking about selling his Harley and put it up for sale, and it sold immediately. So at that point, it kind of got me and my wife talking and thinking. We haven't ridden ours. I had a really nice Harley Ultra CVO that was my pride and joy, but we hadn't ridden it much in the last couple of years. I was looking forward to getting on it and riding it some more this year, but then when my health issue and everything, it's like I don't really feel safe on a bike feeling like I do, so I kind of put it off. Well, by the time summer rolled around, we opted to sell ours as well. So we're bikeless for the first time in about 18, maybe 18 plus years. It's kind of an odd feeling. I've always had street rods, race cars, muscle cars, so forth. So again, my wonderful wife, she kind of made the suggestion that, well, maybe we replace a toy with a toy. So we started talking about some things. I kind of wanted to build another, car, but I didn't really want to I know how I am, and I don't do anything quick. So for me to build a car, it's probably going to be a 2 to 3 year project. My street rod took me 5 years to build when I built it, I built a couple for clients at the time when I had my speed shop, and they were taking 3 to 5 years, or 2 to 3 years. Mine took me 5 years, but theirs was taking me 2 to 3 years. So I knew that even if I got on one and hustled, it was going to take me a while to build one the way I wanted. So that being said, I kind of wanted something, and I think my wife did too, that we could kind of get in and start enjoying. And I told her, I said, you know, I've had straight rods that were so nice, you know, with the frames all, you know, mudded, the welds all mudded and primed and wet sanded and the clear coat cut and buffed, and you know, and when we showed ours down at the Autorama and so forth, at the Boise Roadster show and so forth, that they were the point where there was almost too nice to drive. And then I had a 71 Chevelle that I built from the frame off, and that car I loved. I mean, if there was a cloud outside or whatever and it got caught in a rainstorm or whatever, yeah, it wasn't great, but it wasn't the end of the world. The street rod, it didn't come out of the shop if there was a cloud in the sky. So I kind of started leaning towards that. And personally, I mean, I had people that, you know, oh, you're going to get a Corvette, you're going to get a Corvette. And it's like, you know, my good friend and mentor who passed away here a few years ago, he was a hardcore Corvette guy, loved Corvettes. I did a lot of really reflecting, and I think the reason why I liked Corvettes and everything at the time was because he liked them, and I admired and respected and looked up to him. When I really started thinking about it, I kind of went back, and it's like, you know what? I'm kind of a closet Camaro guy. I've always liked Camaros. When I had my speed shop, I had clients that had first, second, third gens, and I got my fix by working on those and modifying and building those, and I really enjoyed those. I wasn't a big fourth gen fan. Matter of fact, I don't care for, and I apologize to those that do, but I didn't care for the fourth gens. And in 2002, when GM dropped the Camaro from their lineup, I was sad to see the model go, but I thought, if that's the best GM can do, maybe it's best they retire it. So, again, I'm sorry if I offend. That's just my personal feeling on them. But when they brought the fifth gens back in 2010, I really, to me, that made an impression, because I thought, okay, it's bringing back some of the lines of the old ones, of the first gens, but yet I liked the LS, the 6L80, the Tremec 5-speed or 6 speeds. I really liked the powertrain and the platform. It's not the F body. It's the Zeta platform, but so it's not the same as the old F bodies, but it's continuing on that family lineage. But I really liked those fifth gens when they come out. So I kind of started suggesting that to my wife, and she was all in. She's like, oh yeah. So I started pointing out what I was looking at, and I've always been kind of a 2013 guy. I liked the 10 through 13 front ends, and especially the tail lights. The 13 kind of had all the bells and whistles before they went to this facelift in 14. So I was kind of leaning towards the 13. I was kind of wanting to feel her out, see what she was looking at, or what she wanted. We both agreed, and so we started looking, and it took us a couple months to find what I was looking for. I wanted a virgin car. I wanted one that was unmolested, one that somebody else hadn't modified. Unfortunately, along the Wasatch Front here in northern Utah, you have very little V8s. You have very few SSs. You have mostly the LTs, and I mean they're mostly the V6s. I'd probably say 80% of what I was finding were V6s. The few SSs that I was finding were either modded and cobbled together, and they wanted a shit ton of money, or they just wanted a shit ton of money and they were nothing special and high miles. I thought, I don't mind paying a little more than book if it's a clean car and, you know, less than 100,000 miles, and, you know, it was a good starting point. But these guys along here were asking, you know, pushing 30 grand, 28 to 30 grand, and they were kind of flogged on a little bit. So I wasn't in a hurry. Matter of fact, I actually kind of thought I may not find anything till spring. I'll just look over the winter as the economy kind of pulls back a little bit. Maybe I'll find something. And then we happened to be on vacation in South Dakota at our Jeep rally, and I happened to expand my search a little bit one morning while I was sitting there having my coffee, and I found one. So we ended up looking at that one, and I ended up buying that one. So we've got a 5th gen here in our stable. Have had for a few months now, and I'll probably do some videos and stuff on it. I've been just kind of going through and zeroing it out, but I've got a few things. I did put a Borla Attack exhaust system on it. Other than that, it's pretty much stock. I'm just going through zeroing out filters, fluids. It only had 61,000 miles on it. It's a 2013. The paint needs there's a few chips here and there, but it's been a driver. I mean, there's a little bit of curb rash on a couple of the wheels, so I'm going to address that sometime here over the winter, and I'm going to do a full paint correction on it here throughout the winter. But for the most part, it's a beautiful. It's the crystal red metallic tri-coat, or I think GM calls it a tint coat, but basically it's a tri-coat. So I'm going to go through and do a good paint correction on it here. I'll do some videos on it as I'm going through and zeroing it out. I've kind of just been playing with it here a little bit the last few months, just in between other things, trying to get caught up. But anyway, so the other things I've been back to is my son's got a 2002 Duramax it's right just pushing 300,000 miles now. And one of the projects that we wanted to do earlier in the spring was we wanted to scrape down, sand down the frame and black it all out. And then the clear coat was it was peeling pretty bad on the roof and the tops of the doors. It's the Victory Red paint job, and the rest of it wasn't in too bad a shape. There's a few scratches here and there, but the rest of it wasn't in bad shape. So we finally, back in June, when I started feeling a little bit better, we'd come out a little bit at a time here and there, and we prepped it. We got the frame all blacked out and everything. Then we went ahead and sanded the roof down, repainted, used PPG paint with SPI Universal Clear, redid the roof, and then we blended over the edge tops of the doors down into the A, B, and C pillars, and then we did a full paint correction as far as cutting and buffing it. Oh, that thing turned out beautiful. It looks better than the day it rolled off the showroom floor. I mean, you could see the cloud line of the clouds and everything in the hood and the roof, and it just turned out immaculate. So I was pleased with the way that turned out. And then we started prepping my son's Jeep to go. My son and daughter-in-law went with us on our annual Ouray, Colorado wheeling trip. That was in August. By that time I was feeling, I'm going to say 75-80% better. That was one of our first, I take that back. My wife and I took off, we went in July with the motorhome. That was our first trip out. Generally we start in April, and we had to end up canceling 3 of our trips because the wife didn't want me driving the motorhome, and I think she was more concerned about if I had something health-wise come up, she would be responsible for having to get the motorhome home. So our first trip out was the wife and I took off in July. In August, my son and daughter-in-law went with us for the first time on our Ouray, Colorado trip, and it was very enjoyable. We had a great time, but we spent a couple of weeks getting my son's Jeep, kind of going through and getting it all prepped, because in some of my other videos I've mentioned that Colorado really torture tests your Jeeps and your cooling systems, your brakes, your transmissions, everything. It really tests the whole vehicle and all the systems within it. And we really haven't pushed his Jeep that much since we built it a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now, since we built all the suspension and everything. And all that suspension was built here in-house, so we didn't put a suspension system underneath it. We built it from scratch. So personally, I was a little anxious we'd had it to Moab a couple times on some milder trails and so forth, but we really haven't pushed it that hard as far as tested every one of the systems to that level and really flexed it to full stuff and articulation and everything. But boy, I tell you, I was so impressed that he followed us there. We towed our Jeep behind the motorhome. He drove his there for 450 miles. We wheeled for 6 days straight and then turned around and drove it all the way back without a single hiccup. And the thing flexed out beautifully. It handled everything we threw at it with grace and poise. And my son and daughter-in-law had a great time, so we really enjoyed that. And then when we got back, he had a little spot on the driver's side rear door. I think they call it the dog leg in the door jamb, where the wheel wells incorporate into the jamb. he had there was a little spot there that was starting when he bought the Jeep about 5 years ago, and we always told ourselves that once we get it mechanically where we want it, we'll go ahead and address that rust spot. Well, it had progressively gotten worse to the point where I had a new dog leg and outer skin there, and my thinking was we were just going to cut it open and maybe treat it a little bit and put the new dog leg, the outer panel on. We cut it open and got in there, and there was nothing to weld to on that inner structure between the unibody out to that outer skin. So we had to go in and clean up all that. We used Osfo and treated it, sanded it down, treated it again, SPI epoxy primer, brushed it everywhere we could, fabricated an inner panel, welded it in, treated it, epoxy primed it, treated the backside of the outer panel, put it on. I mean, it took us about 2.5 weeks to really go through and go in to that inner unibody panel structure, back out, and then we had very little body work on it. The body work only took us like 2 nights. One night to just put a little bit of glazing filler on it and prime it, and then wet sand it, and then we was ready for paint. So we painted that, and the paint on that thing turned out phenomenal just as well. And I was nervous because it was silver, and any of you guys who do paint and body work know silvers, the way the metallics can orientate and lay down will change the way the color is. So we went through and did that. I put a clear wet bed down. We laid the color down. We blended it out. We blended the color out, and then we brought the clear out. And unfortunately, where the break was, we either had to clear the whole quarter panel and the whole rocker, or do an open blend on the clear. And so we went ahead and did an open blend on the clear, and it turned out phenomenal. Can't even tell. So we got that all done. So that was good. We went ahead and did a little bit more paint correction and everything on that. So both of his vehicles cosmetically now are sound. Let's see, what else did we do? I did a few re-gears on Jeeps, which was stuff I had side jobs planned out for other people. I lost a pinion on mine right in the middle of when I was sick, so I kind of parked my Jeep for better part of probably 3 weeks before I could get to it, and even then I was it was hard for me to get around and do it, but my son was a big help. But I ended up tearing it down, replacing the ring and pinion and everything on that, and building it back out. And I decided that was just a manufacturing defect, or a flaw, if you will. So it was back on the road within a relatively short time, but that was kind of unplanned. But like I said, I had completed a couple of re-gears on Jeeps. I have another guy that I've been doing a little bit of work for here and there. He had built a little 80, I think it was an 85 short bed Chevy that he'd put a supercharged LS and a 4L80 and a few other odds and ends in, and slammed it to the ground and whatnot. He wanted me to go through and build the rear end on that. So we put a true track and changed gearing and all, and traction bars and all that kind of stuff in that, because of the power adders that he was putting on it. That was a fun little project. I just barely finished that one up here probably, I don't know, a month or so ago, 3-4 weeks ago. So anyway, it's not that I haven't been busy, it's just I haven't felt good enough to do the jobs as well as trying to be informative on film. I hope that makes sense. A lot of the jobs I've just kind of was just almost just going through the motions, just trying to get them done and marked off the list so I could move on. But I'm actually, the last 3-4 weeks is probably the best I've felt in the last probably 8 months. So I'm anxious to get back to making some videos again of various projects. I've got my son's got a leak on his truck. I've got to rebuild the turbo on mine. I've got a bunch of little projects to do that I'm going to try to do videos on, so stay tuned for that. The nice thing too is I mean, I shouldn't say the nice thing, but I actually did gain almost 1,000 subscribers within the last 6 to 9 months while I've been kind of away from publishing videos. I've actually picked up quite a few subscribers, so I want to say thank you and welcome. Those that joined later, they're probably feeling like they got ripped off because I haven't done anything for 9 months. I hope to change that. Now, that being said, I've got a question I want to pose, and I would like to maybe have you answer them in the comments. I've made a few changes around the shop, not a ton. I feel like I did my homework when I was building the shop, so most everything I have laid out for workflow, I like where it's at, but I've added a couple pieces of equipment, I've moved a couple things around. I've done quite a lengthy shop tour and toolbox tour about 5 years ago now. Coming on, wow, it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe I've been in the shop I've been in the shop 5.5 years now. So it's been 6 years ago tomorrow since we bought the house. So anyway, would you like to see another shop tour? Would you like to see another toolbox tour? Because I have made some changes to tools. I've added a few. I've given my sons some of my older stuff, and I've replaced it with some different things that I've wanted. Not a ton, but I have made some changes. A lot of stuff I've just kind of moved some things around a little bit, but nothing too drastic. But would you like to see another shop tour video and toolbox tour? Would you like to see them combined into one video? Would you like to see a shop tour and a toolbox tour separately? That one is kind of going to be hard to do because a lot of my tools, usually when you see shop or toolbox tours on YouTube, they're all encompassing of tools, and most of my tools, my hand tools are in my toolbox, but everything else as far as diagnostic and all my, diesel, flow test meters and, all that kind of pullers, all that kind of stuff is out throughout the shop. So that's kind of why I did the last one as a combined shop and toolbox tour. Would you like to see that again? Do you not want me to waste time doing it again? If you're not, if you don't want to see that, I won't do it. So please let me know what you'd kind of like to see. And if there's anything else in any of my other videos, if I've been working in the shop and you see something that, in the background that you have questions about or whatever, ask. I'll be happy to reply, and that's the thing. When I was sick, I was replying to try to reply to all the comments. Now, I will admit, negative comments, I don't have time for negativity. So, and there's quite a few people that I think have become keyboard warriors, especially throughout the last couple of years of COVID, where they've just sat there and ridicule people for one thing or another. I don't respond to negative comments, so if you're thinking you're going to get a rise out of me or whatever, I don't respond to them. Positive comments or questions, things like that, I try to go through and respond to all of them. And that did keep me kind of busy while I was laid up a little bit. But like I said, just let me know in the comments what you'd like to see. If there's, as far as toolbox, shop tour, anything else around the shop. Right now, I'm just kind of trying to get my end of season lawn and power equipment done up. I had a little repair to do on my walk behind mower that's 31 years old now and still looks good, but I had a little wear spot on the deck that I had to repair. So I'm trying to get that done, and then I've got, like I said, I've got a few personal projects to do. I've pretty much gotten caught up on my side job list, and I'm not really taking on anything else until I get mine and my son's vehicles up to par. So that's going to be my main focus here for the next little while, and I hope to have them pretty much wrapped up by spring, and then we can transition into RVing for next year. So anyway, I'd like to welcome the new subscribers. I thank you for subscribing. I'd like to thank everybody for their comments, and I ask that if you see something you like or you're curious about, you're questioning, and I haven't already done a video on it, ask, and I will try to respond either verbally or in a video. I can do a special on something or whatever. So with that being said, I want to say thank you. I just wanted to throw out a quick shop update on what's been going on, and more videos to come. So thank you very much, and thank you for your patience.